Newsmakers for this Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. I'm Louie Butko, and thank you for joining us today. While Queen's Park may be on break, that being the legislature, but plenty to talk about when it comes to what's going on at the province. And to do that, pleased to be joined by Queen's Park producer for CHCH, Randy Rath. Mr. Rath, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. I want to start with this clip from Doug Ford yesterday. We'll get your reaction on the other side.
Preparing for an election call next week.
When are you going to walk down the aisle to go and see the lieutenant governor?
Stay tuned.
Okay.
But we need a mandate from the people. We need a mandate to protect and possibly spend billions of dollars to protect people's jobs, to protect businesses, and to protect communities. And there's only one group of people, one group that is going to give you the mandate, and that's the people, and that's what's great about democracy. They either vote a government in or they vote them out. But thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Is it going to be next week?
Stay tuned, Randy. It feels like we've been hearing that for at least a few months. Anything to read into from the Premier's comments there yesterday?
That's ancient news now. A lot has developed. I can pretty much guarantee that there's going to be an election call on Wednesday, a week from yesterday. There were developments last night that I heard about through sources. They're going to hold what they're calling a super caucus Saturday at a hotel by the airport, where all of the caucus members are going to be, all the campaign chairs are going to be, or the local campaign chairs, and all of the candidates are going to be. And they're going to learn how to campaign. They're going to get their pictures taken with Mr. Ford. They're going to hear from Ford's pollster about really intricate polls. They're going to have a Saturday, and it may spread into Sunday. I'm not really sure. And other than that, I found out that the announcements by the government have been accelerated so that they don't want any announcements done past next Tuesday. And that means that, if they usually plan these things out, a month or two in advance. So if you don't have if you're telling everybody you have to have your communications drops done by next Tuesday, it certainly looks like there's going to be an election. And also last night, he made a speech at a fundraiser where he tried out his "we need a strong mandate" line that he's going to try to make the ballot item in this election.
Is that going to fly? I mean, are people just not so tuned into what's going on in Ontario politics that they'll ignore the fact that he has a majority government, that the Liberal Party is not official status at this point, that the opposition is an NDP that has been dealing with its own issues for the last few years? I mean, is it going to fly in Ontario, this "we need a stronger mandate"? Is that, if we're going to hear it X number of times over the next 30 plus days, is it going to work?
He's taking a huge risk here. He can govern with a mandate, with a strong mandate actually, until July or June of 2026. That's another year and a half. So he's taking a big gamble here. He's hoping that he can just run solely saying that he needs to have a strong mandate to send a message to the Americans that, he has the support of the people and whatever. But does Donald Trump really care about an Ontario election? I wouldn't think so. And I don't think it's going to have any consequence on what Trump decides to do. I think that he's decided to put in tariffs. That's all there is to it, and there's nothing we could do. I have also seen this scenario play out once before. David Peterson called an early election a year and a half, maybe even more early, almost the same time frame as this one, in 1990, arguing that he needed a strong mandate to, vote for the Meech Lake Accord. Well, Bob Rae made a huge issue out of the, at the time, I'm not sure how much it cost, but the cost of this election will be $1.7 million, or $17 million, which is an enormous sum of money. And, it came back to bite David Peterson. The public picked up that, hey, we're wasting money for political opportunism, and he lost. And another thing, my brother worked on that campaign, and he wrote a book about it. You can buy this book at any bookstore, but it really lays out the folly of what Mr. Ford is trying to do. All it takes to change the page on Mr. Ford's messaging is, a tragedy greater than what we've had, something that really stands out at a closed emergency room, homeless people dying in the streets. There's all sorts of issues that the NDP and the Liberals are going to push to the forefront, or try to, while Mr. Ford tries to, wear his cape and play Captain Canada.
New Liaison Strategies poll came out, said Doug Ford's PCs are leading Bonnie Crombie's Liberals by 9 points, but the undecided is now 1 in 4. It says Liberals steadily climbing. They're sitting at 32%. Would this give any pause to the PC command center, their communique? Like, listen, I told you this last time. I'm sick of hearing the same Bonnie Crombie attack ads I've been hearing since she's been elected leader. For someone that's spending so much money on commercials, maybe just update the damn things, in my opinion. But are they scared of Bonnie Crombie legitimately right now?
Well, I think that the polling you were talking about would be an incentive for them to go as fast as they can, because they don't want Bonnie Crombie gaining any ground. And, her organization is starting to come together. I mean, it's slow and it's weak, and it's really hurting because she has had a lot of people that would normally be helping the provincial Liberals be drawn into federal politics, be it the leadership campaign or running up. They're going to be looking at organizing and trying to fight really hard to stop Poilievre.
We saw, even her high-profile communications director, Carter Brownlee, he moved on. One of those things that kind of flies under the radar. But, again, not a good sign to lose your communications director heading into an election. On that note of Bonnie Crombie, she made this big announcement a few weeks ago that she was doing this cross-Ontario tour. I haven't really seen her pop up anywhere. Where is Bonnie Crombie, and is she ready for this election? Is she ready for the big time?
Well, I saw no detail on her cross-country or cross-province tour, or traveling all over the place, talking to people. The position that I'm in, I would have seen it. I don't think there is a tour planned, or if there is, they're cobbling it together right now. Well, they sure better be cobbling it together, because the writ's going to drop, or the writs are going to be drawn up in less than a week. So they've got to get it together. They don't have candidates everywhere, and Bonnie doesn't even hasn't even declared where she's going to run. So it's, she's not prepared. She's still lagging behind. And you talk to her, you ask her questions, and it seems to me, and I don't really like to editorialize that much, but she doesn't seem to have a grasp of the issues that you would think that somebody would have in her position at this point.
On the other side, Marit Stiles, leader of the opposition, she's been a little more front-facing the last few weeks, definitely. But she's in a tough spot. Because she's the leader of the opposition. The Liberals are surging. They still have a lot of work to do, but she may lose that spot as leader of the opposition. Does she have kind of the most to lose in this election?
No, absolutely not. Doug Ford has the most to lose.
Yeah, obviously.
With Marit, it's going to be a fight for opposition here, probably. I mean, I'm really not sure. This could be a disastrous choice for Ford to make. But Marit does have a lot to lose. But Marit, the problem is people don't know who Marit is. When you look at the polling, Marit doesn't really come across as somebody that's widely known, and people don't know what her messaging is. And, I think from watching Marit, the problem with her campaign, her campaign has actually started. But I think that the problem with Marit's style is that she's always looking angry. She's never presenting a truly positive view of what and telling people what she can do that's positive and different than what the Tories will do. And with both the NDP and the Liberals, they're promising the world. Like they're promising we're going to fix healthcare, we're going to fix the homeless crisis, we're going to get the price of homes dropped, and at the same time we're going to drop your taxes. It's impossible. What they're saying, when you look deeply at it, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
What issues do you think are going to be resonating with voters in the next month or so? What do you think will get people talking? Like, is the Greenbelt going to be a talking point, and will that even fly if you're the NDP or Liberals attacking that, or is it just so far gone? Like, what do you think people are going to be talking about on the campaign trail?
Well, the Greenbelt is something that they're going to try to pin on Doug, and they're going to say, he's trying to get out before an RCMP. There's an RCMP investigation into $8 billion Greenbelt scandal. So they're going to the opposition will try to push that to the forefront and say he's trying to get out before somebody gets charged. But I think that the things that are going to resonate in this campaign, or could, if the Liberals and the NDP and the Greens play their cards right, are the crisis in healthcare, because it's a big problem. The emergency rooms restricting hours all over the province, shutting down at times, not operating on weekends. That's ridiculous. There's nowhere near enough doctors, and I mean, sure, there's a plan to get them, but it's not happening very fast. And housing is a big problem. You've got a problem where, rents have gone up so high, the prices of houses have gone up so high, that you have people that are seniors that have essentially a fixed income that get rent evicted. And then you have, 70-year-old women living in their cars who are widowed because they cannot afford a place to live. And Merritt has brought up some examples of this. And that's a huge problem in society. If you have, people that absolutely can't afford a place to live, even though they're making, 50, 60 grand a year, that's a huge problem. As is the housing crisis of people simply not being able to afford a house. Young people like you may never be able to afford a house. And that's a frightening thing. And there's numerous things that could come out. The province is, it's not in great shape. And also, I mean, people should be terrified of a 25%, the 25% that Trump is talking about. It could devastate our industries.
Well, and you mentioned it. We mentioned the Liaison survey. I'll mention the Leger poll as well. They had the Conservatives at 46%. That's a 24-point lead ahead of Bonnie Crombie's Liberals. But in that same survey, more than a quarter of Ontarians, 28%, think the cost of living will be the most important issue facing their community. And you mentioned favorable ratings. Doug Ford currently just a -1, 47 favorable, 48 unfavorable heading in. To that point then, what will Doug Ford do with an election win other than saving himself, 4 more years in office? Is there anything with this strong mandate you think he could strong arm down Ontarians, to make some changes, or is it just business as usual for his party?
Well, thanks for bringing up the cost of living. I'd forgotten about that as an issue, but that is huge. That's right up there with healthcare, if not more so, because, not everyone needs healthcare, but everybody needs to eat. And when you go to the grocery store and a pound of butter is $8, that's a big problem. But as far as what Ford would do with a mandate, he hasn't said. We need to ask him that, other than I'm going to, send a message to the Americans. We need a strong mandate to fight back against the tariffs. He hasn't really said what he wants to do. And, I don't think he intends to. He may be forced to if the campaign doesn't go the way he wants. But it's going to be, 4 weeks, 5 weeks 28 days actually isn't a very long time, and it's unprecedented that we're going to be going to the polls in February. February 27th is the date that the election will, I'm 99% sure will be on. And that's unheard of. Yeah. A winter election is crazy. What happens if there's a snowstorm someplace and people can't get out to the polls? I understand why Doug is doing this, but it really could come back and leave a bad taste in people's mouths.
I agree, and I think if you're not paying attention, you might just there's a lot of people who don't pay attention to politics as closely as you do, where it's your job at Queen's Park, but just in general, I think people will not really clue into that fact, and I think that's going to be part of the messaging, and we've seen it so far. Stiles, Crombie have attacked him for this early election that is very likely going to be called. How do you think the opposition parties will try to paint this message, and especially what we've seen with PCs? They don't do debates, they don't do interviews. They've really solidified their communication strategy, where it's we repeat what's out of the premier's mouth, and we don't sit down for interviews. I've tried dozens of times, Randy, to have conservative politicians on this show. I don't get yeses. You've made requests for us to have the premier, and despite his Fox News appearances and CNN appearances and Meet the Press appearances, I have yet to see him sit down with a non Ben Mulrooney interview in the last month.
Well, in a way, Ford's communications strategy to go on the Amnets is genius, because he goes on there, he spews out his talking points, and then we all go, oh geez, he was on Fox, or he was on CNN, or he was on whatever, and we say that in a story, and then we run a clip. And the clip is what he wants us to run. It stops the pesky questions about the cost of living, the housing crisis, the healthcare crisis. So he gets what he wants, and he can essentially just ignore the media in Ontario. So that's just the way that it is now, and it works for him. Now I'm sure Bonnie and Merritt are going to be very, very much open to coming on our shows and talking to us, and they'll be hugely available, and Doug does do scrums here, but it's not the same thing as a sit down extended interview. It would be great to have him on this podcast.
We played a clip. Why does Doug Ford never look at anyone when they're asking a question? Just out of curiosity. We saw those scrums. He stares straight ahead. Is that a normal politician tick? Am I reading too much into that? Yeah, they just don't look at you when you're asking questions.
Do it. That's what they do. They're trained to look straight ahead.
Okay, all right.
I'm looking down at my feet sometimes, and but it looks way better when I stare right at the little camera. So that's what they do.
Yeah, okay. Back to Doug Ford, though. Does he have higher goals? Do you get the sense that Doug Ford wants to be prime minister one day? Do you get the sense that premier, this giant mandate he's in search of, is in aspirations of something higher beyond premier?
I'm not really sure. I think that he understands the limitations of not being able to speak French. And he understands he's never going to master speaking French. He speaks French as well as I do. I grew up in London, Ontario. I took French in grade 8, and I can sort of follow along when questions are being asked in French, but I would never be able to master it without going and living in Quebec or something for a year or two. So I think that that's a huge problem for Doug. And he may have aspirations and think he can do it without speaking French. I don't know. I really don't know what Doug's long-term plans are, other than for the next 4 years. Well,
we will see. Randy Rath, always appreciate your insights and analysis. We have it on tape. 99% sure next Wednesday something's going to happen. So I'm sure we'll be catching up with you plenty in the next few weeks. Thanks for doing this, my friend.
It's going to be a busy time. It should be fun. This is the 13th election I've covered.
13. That's the lucky number.
4 years, so the math doesn't quite add up.
Randy, appreciate it. Thanks, my friend.
Okay, take care, Louie.
Awesome. Randy Rath, he is the Queen's Park producer. My thanks to him for joining me today. And hey, while you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast. You never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you, including Sportsline with Bubba O'Neill or Did you miss Morning Live today? Well, good for you. The first half hour is now available in podcast form. Go to chch.com/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I want to thank Mike Corsten and Laura Brody for directing today's episode. And thanks, Brent, as well. Great job today, Brent. Appreciate it. Thank you for checking us out from all of us here at CHCH. I'm Louie Butko. Have a great day.